Hey everyone, welcome to episode 73 of At the Coffee Table Podcast. I am Jason Klink, your host. Today I am doing a solo podcast. No guests with me this week. This is my opinion session on the podcast because the more things I see, both in and out of the news, the more I'm convinced that the world is spinning at ludicrous speed. Yes, Captain, we've reached ludicrous speed. Sometimes it almost seems like the globe is going to spin itself right out of control, right off its axis, and end up out in the Milky Way somewhere. The reason I wanted to do this podcast today was just to give my opinion, my take on current events. So it's a current events flavored episode here today. There's no two ways about it. The last 2 years of all of our lives have been challenging, to say the least. We've been dealing with an illness, and I have to be careful with the words I say because there's a lot of censorship going on. But there was an illness unleashed on the world, and in my opinion, it was either an accident or on purpose. It doesn't really matter, but it was released into the world, and it wasn't released by a bat or any other animal, and we've been dealing with the fallout ever since. And unfortunately, in our current environment, instead of the medical professionals taking the lead or being allowed to take the lead on this current environment, there's politicians pushing political agendas to serve themselves and serve those that pay for their services. I was thinking about this illness and how my knowledge of working in an ambulance for almost 2 decades is that illnesses are illnesses, and these type of illnesses will mutate, change, and generate different versions of itself each and every year. And if you think about the flu and how the flu is, there's an inoculation every year, but really it's a educated guess on the right serum that goes with that, and it's not always typically correct. So now we have the current illness and what they're trying to push, and I'm not anti-inoculations. I am just critical thinker and a realist. And what's going to happen here, because Big Pharma rules the political world, rules the healthcare system, Big Pharma is going to continue to do what Big Pharma does. So that means convince everyone that inoculation after inoculation after inoculation is necessary. So now we switch to the political agenda. And I've been saying since the last election period, national election period, that the far right and the far left were tearing apart the Constitution right down the center. And, I'm a constitutionalist and conservative by nature who identifies with the libertarian platform. And so, that's kind of the road I travel. So with that, if you look back at history, and I've talked about this before, looking back at history, to me, in the last 20 years, an authoritarian movement has really reared its ugly head and taken over. And in the last couple of years, not only is there an authoritarian government, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, now we have socialist activities that are also occurring. And it's disturbing, and it's not only here in the U.S. An extreme left socialist government just took over Germany. An extreme left government fashion is ruling Australia. I think the saving grace we have in this country is the Constitution. And I think that as American citizens, we need to voice our opinions more. We need to find that leadership that's going to stand up, true leadership, because we really need it right now. If you And guess what, folks? We all get we all get an opinion. We all get an opinion. We all get a point of view. You may not agree with anything that I'm saying or only parts of it, but it's my opinion and my point of view. We've created a culture that's like no other, nothing I've ever seen. And I'm a kid that lived through the end of the Cold War, where nuclear proliferation was always the scare tactic, and Russia was going to blow us up. And then somehow that was defeated, but it's still a real threat, and we have other threats in this world that may or may not be getting paid attention to. So now you look at the current environment, we're all trying to survive, and depending on the outlet that you decide to get your information from could vary. You have extremists that on one end or the other that the sky is falling, or conspiracy theories that may or may not necessarily be true. But if you go back and look at history, and the history that's played out over the last century really, and where the push for the top 1% elite was given a pathway to be rulers and to rule our country. The top 1% elite are pushing the agenda. The top 1% elite are being put in the highest office of the land, no matter how we all think our democracy is being run or how we vote. And this is something we need to take back control of as citizens of this country. There's no two ways about it. We're going to be dealing with the current environment and this illness for a long time. Viruses, now I said it, but illnesses don't eradicate themselves. There's no magic shot or pill that's going to make it all go away. It's going to continue to mutate and form in different forms, and it's no different than flu or pneumonia or other illnesses that we deal with. And I think that if we do our best to take care of ourselves, to keep ourselves healthy, to avoid overindulgence, to avoid unhealthy lifestyles, that we'll all be better off in the long run. And I don't mean to make this a doomsday podcast. I just wanted to give my point of view, because I do my best to attempt not to watch the news, because it's not reporting anymore, it's biased opinions. So when I do consume some news content, either, it doesn't matter the platform, but it just gets my mind thinking of what's the truth in all of it. And that's the important part, is to seek out the truth. And we need to do what we can do to better our own lives in spite of what the 1% elite are attempting to control. And it's very important to develop ourselves and our health, our nutrition, and the whole ball of wax kind of wrapped up in one. Health, nutrition, fitness, spiritual if you go down that road, faith if you go down that road, personal development. All of that is super important. But with the world spinning out of control at ludicrous speed, anything we can do to pump the brakes or slow it down some is a healthy avenue to go down. So with this podcast, I have always created a medium to be able to have discussions, to sit around the virtual coffee table and give our take on the world events, and maybe solve a problem or two. I mean, the whole concept behind the podcast was, all my years in the firehouse, we would sit at the kitchen or coffee table and we would solve all the world's problems over a cup of coffee or two. And there's nothing better than collective conversation that's positive. You can argue and disagree, but at the end of the day, once you get to the end of that conversation, as long as there's a positive outcome and everybody still walks away feeling good about themselves, it was a great conversation. And that's the purpose of this podcast. And so I wanted to sit at the coffee table today and just give my take on the current events. because I feel it was necessary, and I feel that given the current environment and given the health scare and given the time of year, because realistically this is it can be a fun time of year, but it's a stressful time of the year, and all this other stuff that's piling on top of it is just making it almost overwhelmingly stressful. Especially when we're trying to enjoy ourselves, our families, and our friends, and getting ready to do something great in the new year. You pile a lot of the negativity and everything that's in on these platforms. It's very difficult to set that aside in order to find the enjoyment that goes along with the holidays. And I think that if we focus on the right things, we focus on the important things, and keep ourselves healthy, that everything else can play out and let it play out the way it does. And we don't have to be consumed or overwhelmed by the influences of politicians or big pharma or anything else that is going on in the world. But it doesn't mean to not do your part to make small changes to make our little parts of the world better. And like I was saying, there's a real need for true leadership and leadership to come through, no matter what side of the aisle you might be on or what your affiliations might be. I'd be very interested to speak with our healthcare professionals that are out there busting their asses every single day to take care of those that are sick and ailing, and just get their point of view on the last almost 2 years. So this is an open invitation to any of my friends in healthcare. If you ever want to sit at the coffee table and have an honest discussion, and no strings attached, of your point of view of what's gone on in the last 2 years, I openly welcome it. I'd love to have the conversation, because I just love to hear what you're thinking and what you've seen, because I think that's where the true stories are with those great professionals that have been really going above and beyond for almost 2 years. And man, I can only imagine how tired you are. I don't envy your profession at all. So with that, I hope everybody has a great holiday season. I hope you are able to take a little time for yourselves and your family. I hope that you are able to make your little part of the world better. And I'd love to hear about it. So drop a comment. Share this with anyone you might feel would get any kind of value out of it. And we have some interesting guests that will be coming on here, either by the end of the year or the beginning of next, but the podcast continues. So with that, I hope everybody takes care of yourselves, takes care of each other. Have a great day.